If you've been following me on Discord or Patreon, then you probably already know that I stopped working on my factory automation game. For anyone new, it was inspired by Satisfactory, but I wanted to add a story to give automation a purpose. However, as I went through development, I realized pretty quickly that it's gonna be pretty much impossible to make a game that took a team of people a lot of time all by myself with no experience. I mean, it sounds pretty obvious now that I'm phrasing it like that, but at the start of making the game, I didn't realize it. I mean, I heard a lot of people say you have to start with a small game, but that's not why I wanted to make games. So, as any sane and rational person would do, I just ignored all that and went straight for the boss. And eventually I wasn't having fun anymore and I decided to stop. So after 9 months of work, what did I learn and what would I do differently if I had to start over? Well, let's start with the biggest mistake I made. If I were to start over again, I would have stopped myself from just adding in more and more features when I clearly wasn't capable of adding in those features. I would see people asking me stuff like, "Hey, will you add monsters and NPCs?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course, that sounds great." Then what about plants and farming? Sure, that would be awesome. But the truth is, just because a feature can fit in your game doesn't mean you should add it. Because what we'd end up with is a bunch of separated features and mechanics with no real game. So the first thing I would do is focus on making a minimal viable product, or MVP for short, where I would focus on making a game with as few features as possible. Then, once the core is there, I can add as many features as I see fit, one feature at a time. Let's say I want to make a clicker game. Instead of adding in a bunch of features, I would focus on making the clicking part of my game and make it fun first. Then I would add other features like a shop or modifiers. A good example of this is the Hytale situation. Hytale was a very big and ambitious game that got 60+ million views on their trailer alone as of the time of this video. They recently announced that they will unfortunately stop developing the game, and one of the main reasons was that they kept on trying to match the people's hype, improving every aspect of the game to make that perfect game everyone was looking forward to, which led them to do stuff like reworking their entire engine and making tons of new features. Eventually, they got so overwhelmed that development started to slow down, which led to a lot of postponing the release until eventually they stopped. Now this next one might surprise you, but the second thing I will change is breaks. In the first few months of game dev, my momentum was so fast and I was making progress left and right. However, as development continued and the game started to expand, my momentum started to slow down, and I wasn't able to make the same progress I was doing when I first started, which led me to overwork myself too much, trying to match the progress I was doing. However, I do know now that momentum fade is completely normal, and starting out any new project gives that energy boost and passion that you begin to lose the more time you spend making your game. So it's okay to take little breaks from time to time and try to regain some of that energy and passion you've lost. It could be from a post you saw while scrolling on the internet, or a game devlog. Anything can give you the boost you need. However, what's more dangerous about breaks is taking too much of them. The longer you make a game, the more you need breaks, and that's true. However, the longer you take a break, the harder it becomes to return back to your game. So, having a balance is key. Another point I want to talk about is devlogs. I've made a video recently talking about how devlogs are a double-edged sword, and that having too many devlogs for your game can ruin it. Because, at least for me, having more devlogs means having to work more on making your game look good. But that's not always the case with development. Sometimes it takes months to have a working stable feature for your game. And with my factory game, I had to cut out a lot of corners, which eventually led to more bugs than I could handle to fix. So yeah, devlogs will only be made when I make real progress, however long that takes. So now comes the real question. Would I do my factory game again if I were to start over? And the answer to that question would be absolutely yes. Because the amount of motivation I got from making this game led me to learn more than I would have ever learned making a small game. I mean, sure, I could have failed making a small game and learned from another one, but having a very large scale project really teaches you a lot a small game can't. Like how important clean code actually is, and how to connect multiple features together, and so much more. Now, sure, I might not be the best at any of that, but it's like learning to swim, and then immediately your very next task is to cross the ocean. You think that since you can swim, you can do anything. So you start by exercising your body and stamina and improving your time underwater. And slowly you get much better at it because the goal is still way far ahead of you and you still have so much work to do, until you realize it's actually impossible for you to make. But that experience you gained is going to be much more than if you started by trying to cross the next side of the pool. Now you know what your real limits are and how you can actually improve your weak points more. I know it doesn't make that much sense, but it actually does. At least for me. Now the last thing I want to mention, this is not the end of my game dev. In fact, I've been secretly making a new game that I'm having much more fun making. And I did apply all of what I said in this video, focusing on making an MVP and working from there. And I can tell you right now that I'm having promising results. And I think it will be my first commercial game. I will be releasing it on Steam, but it would require a lot of work and money, and releasing a game on Steam isn't free. There is publishing fee, and I would probably want to hire a music composer because I don't want your ears to suffer. Problem is, I'm broke. I don't have a sponsor or a publisher or anything fancy like that. It's literally just me trying to finish this solo. So having people playtest and tell me what's working and what's not is going to be key to releasing a good game. If that sounds like something you would want to be part of, I'll be posting early builds and behind the scenes updates on Patreon. And actually, by the time this video is out, there will be a Patreon post talking about what the game is all about and everything I've built so far. I just don't feel ready to share all that publicly yet. But if you are curious, it's already there waiting. Also, I'm kind of out of ideas for YouTube videos, so if you have any topic you would want me to talk about, you can let me know in my Discord server. I'm trying to be active there as much as I can, or simply drop a comment. So yeah, I failed at making my dream game, but it might have been the most useful failure I've ever had. Stay tuned for when I release the first devlog for my new game, and see you later.